What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and as expected and requested, we are back with the deck profile on Rising Nova in Standards. So you guys have been asking me to do this deck profile, and I'm more than excited to do it for you guys. And the thing is, I've been a fan of Rising Nova for a very long time, of Rising Arc in general, and my first stop it was also with Rising Nova at a huge tournament. So the deck means a lot for me, and Rising Nova coming back in V, well, I was already a big fan. I was sold out before I even knew what his skill would be. And now with us knowing his skill and we are so deep into the set, we could already build the deck, and I think that this would also be my final build, but maybe when the card will be revealed with more testing, the deck would change a little bit. But you guys requested me to do a deck profile on this to show you guys my take on Rising Nova in V. And of course, in the future, we'll also do some deck profiles for Premium. But let's focus now on V. As you can see here, I'm a big fan of Rising. But that shouldn't surprise you guys because you know I'm a big Spikeworth fan. Alright, so if you're new to our channel, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you're a Spikeworth fan, then you're in for a treat. If not, then we have, of course, a lot of other content, especially from the premium collection coming up very soon on our channel as well. Some gear content, some Nuba, and also some others from different clans, Bermuda, OTT, and way more. If you want to go deep into this video, and this would be a long ass video, I would advise you to pause the video, get something to drink, get some snacks, get something to eat. Because again, I will talk about the deck first, let's say show you the cards, the deck list, and then after that I will come back and explain the skills, explain my choices, also explain which other choices you could have made, and at the end of the video show you a small combo of what the deck is capable of. Of course, let's go fast through the deck first, and then as I said, we will come back and explain. So we have 4 copies of Exceptional Expertise Rising Nova. Then we add in 4 copies of Bolt Spike, and then 2 copies of Spiking Cyclone. This is your grade 3 lineup. We have 10 grade 3s, and we will come back and explain why and how and the choices and also their skills. And for the grade 2 lineup, we start with 4 copies of High Speed Bracky, another staple that's keep coming back in our standard decks. And then we add in our newest reveal, which is Branch Spurt. And then we have our triple R of the set, which is Adorbs, Palm, Row, Rona. For the grade 1s, we first have the 3 copies of Commander Gary Cannon, then we add 4 copies of Ambush Dexter, and then we have 4 copies of our grade 3 searcher, which is of course Acrobat Verdi. Right, triggers and starter, it doesn't really matter which starter you would play. I think that I will play the SP, whatever or whichever one it would be. But I also like the new one, as I've seen Mega Trainer for so long. It's nice to finally see and play something different. Then we play only 6 crits. I don't really see a reason to play the 8 crits anymore because, of course, Rising skill, which gives us both markers, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the 6 crits are nice. Of course, play 4 copies of Fira and then add in 1 Silent Joker and 1 Sonic Break, as it's nice to have the team complete. And we also don't play Seafreight, so there is no reason to play 4 copies of certain cards. For the draws, we play 6 draws. So 4 copies of Merlin. As you can see, I don't play the Sentinel crits. How cute she also is, but still not enough for me to play her. I find the Sentinel PGs better and work also good. Of course, in a deck that you also play many draws, you don't really want to have this in hand. You could recycle it back, but still it's good to have the Sentinel PGs. For the heals, we play the Ugly Heal, and you guys, some of you will not agree, some of you would. And the thing is, I'm not a big fan of Adelaide. I think it's a bad joke. But with testing, she actually came in handy. She did very well. And that's why I thought, hey, let's put the whole deck in the deck box of Adelaide, in the sleeves of Adelaide, and everything with Adelaide. So people, and the thing is also, if you have your hand, people would look more at Adelaide than you are. So it does them more pain than it does you. So hey, there she is, Adelaide. Some of you guys want to see her, enjoy, have fun, see her, watch her. All right, so let's go back and explain the deck, and let's start with the grade 3s. So first of all, we have our main guy of the deck, the main grade 3, the ace, the big boy, Rising Nova. So exceptional expertise, a Rising Nova. In the past, if you guys don't know, then his skill was when you stride on the top of it, your stride gained the skill, which is on attack counter +1, and then you put a card from your hand to the soul. You call something from your deck to an open deck or circle, give it an extra 5k. His GB2 skill is almost the same, but it doesn't cost you a counter blast, but just call something from the deck by putting one card from your hand into your soul when attack, but it also doesn't give it an extra 5k. So I expected his skill to be something like this, something that give us an extra attack. But they also said master all force markers, which means that he would switch between force 1 and force 2. But I never expected him to give us both. I never did. I actually expected him to switch between markers. So if you already have chose 1, you also could go back and switch to 2, something like that. But no, he actually said on place, it's a continuous ability, on place, or actually on ride, whenever you ride into it, you don't have to choose between force 1 and force 2. You just get force 1 and force 2. Just by placing him, riding him, you get E force 1 and E force 2. Of course, it's a Vanguard skill because it's on ride. And it's up to you to put them on whatever circle you want. So that's his first ability. And that's one of the ability that makes this card insanely good, especially in premium, but also in standard, because we all know we could switch markers. And we know how effective Bull Spike is. But now think about Bull Spike with Rising Nova, where you could first use the ability to get both markers and then keep moving the markers. Then you have power and you have the crits, which is something that is insanely strong in Spike with this. His second ability, on the other hand, is something that I also did not expect, not in this way. And that's one of the ability that makes this card, again, the ace of the deck, which is a soul blast of 1. And then what you do is you choose up to 2 of your grade 3 rare guards, and then until the end of turn, this unit copies their abilities or gain their abilities. And then this ability may only be used by a card with the same card name once a turn. So you pretty much cannot really choose another Rising and then copy its skill again and then copy another thing. So you cannot do that. So you could only use the skill of Rising Nova once. And that's very good. But the important thing about him is he opens up a path to combine grade 3s. And some people call it the same as what Dark Irregulars have with Gasteel. Some others say it's something like what Gears have. But for me, it's unique to us as Spike the players, and it does copy something that you already have on the field, which would people say, yo, then you would have to run a lot of grade 3s. But D-Boy, you're only running 10 grade 3s, is that enough? Well, it's not about the numbers and it's not about differences, it's about which combo you want to get with your grade 3s. So that's the skill of Rising Nova. Let's explain the other grade 3s and then come back and talk about what you could do with this card, right? So the next card we have is Bull Spike, and we also play him at 4. Why do we play this at 4? Because riding into Bull Spike is already very good, especially if you go to Rising Nova and you get both markers. Let's say that you gain them and you put them on the Vanguard. Then the next turn, if you ride into the Bull Spike and then you get another force marker, then you pretty much already could move all of these around with the Bull Spike. So Rising Nova already did what he was able to accomplish, which is just getting you those force markers and mixing force 1 and force 2, and now you could just move them around, which is amazingly good. And as you see, as I explained, is when you ride into Rising Nova and you get both markers, the next time you ride, let's say you ride into Pulse Spike, now you do have to choose between Force 1 and Force 2. And let's say you choose Force 1, and then the next turn you ride into Rising Nova again, then you pretty much gain the 2 markers again. So you gain 2 markers. Then if you ride again into something different, then you have to stick with Force 1 because you chose Force 1. But Rising Nova just gives you both. You don't have to choose. But when you ride into something different, then you have to make a choice, and then you have to stick with that choice. Alright, as I said, we'll come back and explain the combos you do with him. The reason why you have him at 4 is you always want to have him at your disposal, and also he is amazingly good to ride into. Remember guys, that Bull Spike is one of the cards that we actually need to have in our deck to move the markers as easy as you do. And one of the most important things is that the skill of Rising Nova to copy those grade 3s also costs you 1 soul. And if you want to combine him with him, then you will lose 4 soul a turn if you want to make 3 attacks. But you also make more than 3 attacks. And that's when the next card comes in, which is Spiking Cyclone. One of the cards that you could play at 3 and take out a grade 2 if you want to, or take out a Blue Spike, but I found him at 2 more than enough. Maybe when we will have a more retire heavy format, then you would run the third one, but you could still recycle it. So I think it's fine to run him at 2. And I haven't had any trouble with not finding him while playing this deck. And also, he is a good piece to have in the deck, but it's also alright to play without him. So that's also a good thing to say. So Spiking Cyclone, what he does is he has 2 abilities. The first one is a continuous ability. During your turn, this unit gets plus 5k for each of your force markers on your circles, and it's only a Vanguard ability, so he doesn't gain the power as a Vanguard. The second ability is when it's an auto ability on Vanguard as well, is when this unit attacks, you count +1 and then you stand one of your Vanguards. So it's very similar to the skill of Siegfried, which is gaining power and restanding something. But Siegfried costs you soul to restand and he needs to hit, and this guy pretty much restands by counterblessing 1 on attack. And you already see the combo that you do, right? So you have the Spiking Cyclone on one side, and you have him as your riding Vanguard, and then you have the Bull Spike, and then you pretty much have Force 1 and Force 2, and then you put them underneath a Vanguard. Doesn't really have to be these Vanguards, but it's just easy to explain the skill or the combo like this. So you pretty much attack with him or anything that is the most powerful, and then you attack with this, and then because you have copied both of their abilities, then you could activate the ability to count +1 and to restand this. But you could still activate his ability to move the markers on this attack, and because he also gained his ability, he already gets a 10k because you have 2 markers, this on the first turn, and this would be a 33 with 2 crits. And then you attack again with this or that, and then you move the markers again. So you have 4 strong attacks, all of them have the extra crit. You still retire something and draw because your opponent could never take all of them, and yeah, that's just insanely good. So that's like your first turn is already so explosive that your opponent, if you go first, your opponent would just cry. And let's go to the grade 2s, and then again I will show you more of the combos. So we have our Adorps right here, whatever you want to call her. The thing about this card is that she makes the deck also a little bit more flexible. It's one of the cards that actually kicked Ronaldo, a Spike Bouncer, out of the deck. But we will go back and explain the other choices as well. So what she does is pretty much she has a Vanguard and Vanguard ability. Her first one is an auto ability. When placed, you count +1. You search your deck for up to 1 grade 3 card, and you call it to Vanguard circle and shuffle your deck. So pretty much on place, Vanguard, Vanguard, count +1, get a grade 3 from your deck, shuffle your deck. And that's an amazing ability because as you see, Rising Nova needs grade 3s to target, and she just give you a grade 3. But then you would say, hey, but what do I do with her? Because will I boost? Do I have to put the grade 3 behind her? What do I do with her? And that's when her second ability comes in handy. Her second ability is only on Vanguard, it's continuous, and it said if you have a grade 3 in this column, this unit gain boost, which means that you could just activate her ability, call something, and then you could boost that grade 3 with her, which makes an amazing number because she's a 10k, so it's a 10k booster. So that would be a E23, but then you also have your Force 1, so it's a 33 with a crit. That's great, right? Right, next grade 2 we have is, as we said, the newest reveal, and this card actually just took out the Spike Monster. Spike Monster is 2 counterblast heavy, we'll explain him in a minute, but what this guy does is a lot. Pretty much when he attacks, he needs to attack the Vanguard. So when he attacks a Vanguard, you pay the cost, which is putting 1 normal unit from the drop zone to the bottom of the deck, which is a good cost, especially because we play 2 copies of the Spiking Cyclone. And then your opponent must intercept. If they play Excel, then they must intercept with everything. So that's his skill. Normally, the skill would say your opponent cannot intercept, but this guy said your opponent must intercept with everything they have as interceptors. And then they could guard if they want to guard for more. And then at the end of the battle, he goes to your soul and then you draw a card. So pretty much he has a combination of the second skill of Spike Bouncer, which counterblast 1 goes to soul, and his own skill by your opponent must intercept, and also the skill of Wonderboy or Big Blow Ted that puts cards from the drop zone back to your deck, normal units. But he could also put great ones, which is something that Big Blow Ted and Wonderboy could never do. And the good thing about this card is it's so good in the, let's say, Narukami matchup, those kind of matchups, but also in the Excel matchup, which takes out the whole field. It's good even in premium if you talk about DP and their grade 3s, which could also intercept. It just puts your opponent at a strange situation. And also he combines very well with the skill of Bull Spike, which means that because your opponent would have to guard because of his ability, then the attack will not go through, which means that not hit, which means you could still retire even more and draw a card. So one of the cards that I actually wanted in the deck, and I was searching for something like this, and it's too good. All of these grade 2s are so good that we could not take one out to play another grade 3. Last but not least, we have 4 copies of High Speed Bracky. You know what this card is capable of. It's just one place you get the extra 10k at the start of the main phase, goes to soul and get you a new Bracky. And Bracky is amazingly good. You can combine him also very well with him because he could put the Bracky back to the bottom of the deck, so you keep having Brackies to recall them. But also in the early game, being a 20k hitter, could hit anything. He's good with the restand ability of Cyclone when you target him with Nova, because he would be a 20k by himself with the Force 1, that's a 30k. Restanding 30k with the extra crit is insanely strong. So yeah, there are a bunch of things that you could do with Bracky, and it's just good. Giving you the soul, being a beater, everything he does is good, and it's another card that you should not take out of your deck. Alright, then we get to the grade 1s. We have the 4 copies of Acrobat Verdi. Acrobat Verdi has 2 abilities. The first one is a continuous ability on Vanguard the Vanguard, and if you have Superior called this turn, then he gained plus 5k. But the deck Superior call a lot, so most of the time he would be a 13k attacker or a 13k booster, which is very good. But mostly in this deck, this guy actually works so good because of the fact that you sometimes need different grade 3s. So if you already have Nova, then you search for Bull Spike. If you have Nova and Bull Spike, you search for Spiking Cyclone. He does give you the opportunity to search into those different grade 3s, which normally you only need 1 grade 3. You search into 1 grade 3 because that's your right target. But in this deck, you also want to call those grade 3s, so you could target them with Nova. And yeah, that's his second ability. So on plays from hand, right Vanguard and Vanguard makes him very good to ride into. You search the top 5 cards of your deck and then you add a grade 3 to your hand. If you did add a grade 3 to your hand, then you have to discard 1 card from your hand, which works very good. If you go second, you just discard, let's say, the quick shield or those draw triggers that have only 5k shield, or a grade 3 that you don't want, or anything else. And then we have one of the great ones that also makes this deck very consistent. It's Ambush Dexter. Ambush Dexter has a Vanguard ability, which is when you place him on the Vanguard circle, you pretty much discard a card and draw a card. And that's one of the skills that makes the deck actually pretty consistent. It's very bad that it's not draw and then discard, but still it's good because, as we said, sometimes you just have that quick shield, that draw trigger that you just want to discard and then draw something different. Sometimes you end up with having too much grade 3s in your hand you don't want. Talking about grade 3s, his second ability comes in handy, which is a Vanguard ability. It's also on place, and then what he does is you pay the cost, which is a counterblast of 1, and then you put 1 grade 2 or greater Vanguard you have on the field to your soul, and then you call 2 cards from your deck with the same grade. So let's say that you have her on the field. You could activate his ability to put her in your soul, and then you could call 2 Brackies. You could also call a Brackie and this guy. But mostly he was made to target your grade 3s. Because sometimes, let's say that you have ridden into the Rising Nova and you already gained the 2 markers, but you don't have the Bull Spike or the Spiking Cyclone in your hand, or you have only one of the 2. But let's say you have a Rising Nova, which you don't want to ride into Rising Nova again next turn because you just want those other 2s, right? So you call Dexter, you activate the skill, you pay the counterblast, you put this into your soul, and then you call any other 2 grade 3s you want to have on the field. But if you already have a Bull Spike, you could also do it with him. You target Bull Spike, put it into your soul, and then you call these 2. And that's the good thing, and that's also the reason why you want to have 4 Bull Spike in the deck, and at least 2 of the Spiking Cyclone. But Dexter is very good. With a counterblast of 1, he gives you a plus, and he lets you search through the deck to what you want to call. So it's not another card that makes, again, the deck very, very consistent. Alright, and last grade 1 we have in the deck is Commander Gary Cannon. And we play Commander Gary Cannon because he makes great numbers with your grade 3s hitting to the grade 2. And the way you do this is you normally, because of her, you call a grade 3, which could be, let's say, the Spiking Cyclone because you want it on the field. But if you put them in the front row, then you have to defend him. And then this is already a 21 column, which is great, hitting their grade 2 or grade 1. So that's why. And also he helps you to put and recycle those grade 3s back to your deck, those draw triggers, anything, sometimes even the quick shield, put it away. And sometimes you have like a lot of Brackies in your hand that you don't want, anything you want. It's another card, again, that makes the deck consistent, and consistency is very good to give you a higher winning rate. So that's the reason why we play him. Going through the triggers, we already talked about the heals and my choices for those. We always talked about the PGs and my choices for those. And then we also talked about the being, let's say, the 6-on-6. This is another card that's very easy to recycle back to your deck, to just discard, because you have a lot of cards in the deck that say discard or put to the bottom of the deck, and this is amazing to have. Also, I really love the art of this card, and it's one of the cards that I would play in a lot of decks, being a draw trigger, a V draw trigger. Alright, now let's talk about the choices that you could make for the deck if you want to play different choices, okay? But let's also go back and start from grade 3s yet again. So, giving us Rising Nova as a card, as you know, this card does a lot for the deck, and this card also becomes even better and better in the future, because then we'd have even more grade 3s to target. For now, I chose only these 2 grade 3s to use with Rising Nova, right? But some others would say, yo, d.boy, there are also other grade 3s that you could use, like Siegfried, like Juggernaut, like Bad and Dragger, like Gun Wolf, like whatever. There are also other grade 3s. Well, you don't really want to use Gun Wolf because he uses too much soul and he's very inconsistent even with the amount of grade 3s you want to put into your soul. And having him as a Vanguard and the same ability as a Vanguard, you will never get both of them off. So that's one of the reasons that Gun Wolf is out. You cannot really use him. Banner Dragger is good to use, but one of the good thing about Banner Dragger is he comes out of the soul and he destroys a whole column. But Rising Nova will never be able to keep that skill because his skill is to the end of turn. So that's one of the reasons that there is no need to play this card. Also, gaining the extra 5k in the crit doesn't really do much because Rising Nova already gives you the 2 markers. So he's out as well. Then we come into Siegfried, and Siegfried is a good choice to run in this deck because with the counterblasts you could fill up your soul and then you could create a huge field and also create a huge power, and also giving the hit ability you could restand something. But then you would have to use or abuse most of your counterblasters, which means that your grade 1 and grade 2 Dexter and Rorona will not be effective. They will not do much. And that's why I chose to go with the Cyclone. Also, gaining the power from the spiking Cyclone is so effective, especially later in the game when you ride the second time or a third time. So that's one of the reasons why if you have to choose between Cyclone and Siegfried, then I would definitely go for Cyclone. And people would say, hey, why not to add 1 copy of it? Well, you could, but what would you take out? Because your grade 2s are all very good. So there is no reason to play one-offs. It's good to focus on one strategy. Then we come to Juggernaut. And Juggernaut is a card that I actually wanted to put in the deck, but I just don't have a space for him. Maybe I will take out 1 Bull Spike and 1 of the grade 2s to put 2 copies of Juggernaut in the deck. And it's one of the strategies that was actually showed by a friend, which he said what you could do is during your grade 2 ride, you could ride into her and then you call the Juggernaut maximum, and then the maximum would already be very, very strong. So attacking for 23, especially on a grade 1, is amazingly good. But when you go to your Rising Nova, then you pretty much will also still want your these 2 right on the field, but he also goes to the soul and gets you a new one. And you pretty much what you could do is, because this card is already so strong, it's the one card that you want to restand using this skill of Cyclone. But if you're attacking into the grade 2, Braki pretty much does the same thing. If you're attacking to the grade 3 and you have a booster behind Braki, then it's still the same. There is no reason to focus too much on the Juggernaut right here. The Juggernaut actually makes the deck a little bit inconsistent in my eyes. And that's one of the reasons why I also didn't add the Juggernaut to the deck, and I kept with the grade 3 lineup being as simple as it is right now, with having just this strategy that you want to go for Rising first. After that, you just want to have both of them on the field, have the 4 attacks with all of those markers, empty up your soul. You need 5 soul for this combo, 1 for him, and then 3 moving the markers, and then the 4th one because you go you have the 4th attack. So that's 5 soul you want to use for this, which is a lot. So you need 1 extra soul in the early game. But yeah, it's the strongest in my eyes. This is the strongest combo. And from that moment on, you could just go for a Bull Spike and then you have the 3 markers to move around. And then after that, sometimes you go back and go into Rising because sometimes you still have some soul. And then even if you don't have soul, you could still gain the ability of him, which could give you 1 extra attack. And that's more than enough. The extra attack is even better than moving the marker in the late game. And of course, with the last riding of Rising, you still get the Force 1 and Force 2, which means you would normally give the Force 2 marker to your Rising, because it would look like this. The first ride is Rising, and Rising giving the markers to the Vanguard. And let's say that we have this and this on the field, which your field would look a little bit like this, right? So let's say that your field looks like this. And then let's say you have her behind this, so she could boost. Okay, you activate the skill of Rising, you target these 2, so you use 1 soul, and then you also gain extra 10k because of his ability, and you have 2 markers. So that would be This is how your field would look like, right? Now, you attack first with this. He already gains the 10k because on place ability, and this would be a 33 with 2 crits. Then you attack with this, you counterblast 1, you restand him, and then you lose 1 more soul, and then you move the markers right here. Okay, they have to guard this. This is another 33 with a crit 2. And then you move the markers yet again. If they guard, you destroy something, you retire something, and you draw. And then you could move the markers right here. And then at the end, this also gets boost. You move the markers right there. And then this would be your end. Okay. The reason why you put him right here or right there is because you have only 2 copies of him. And he is a little bit more disposable. So let's say that they get rid of this, and normally you will guard your Bracky because you want more soul, but even if they don't, if they retire it, it's alright. And then you stand, and then now you ride into the Bull Spike. Then the Bull Spike will give you yet another marker, and this time, of course, it's Force 1 marker, so you have 2 Force 1 and Force 2. You could move this up, you could call something else right here, or just move this up, and then also you're good to go. You attack first with this, then you Soul Blast 1, and then you move these right here. You attack with that, and then you move these right here, and you attack with that. And these attacks are very strong, even without triggers, because you have the 2 markers to move around. But then, let's say you go back and you ride into your Exceptional Expertise Rising Nova. And right here, if you don't have enough soul, it's still good to just target him, because you still gain the 2 markers, right? And then the unit you want to make the strongest is the unit that will attack twice. So you make this the strongest, or if you have another grade 3, let's say you're lucky and you have a Bull Spike and you have some soul, you can still do this, right? But it doesn't really matter. You make the strongest attack, the attack that you want to restand. And then you have 2, the second marker will you put right here, because he already gained extra 20k because of all of these markers you have around. Then you attack with this first, and then you attack with this, and then with his ability targeting him, this would restand and attack again. Of course, it would have been better if this was the attack, because it would be a 34 and not just a 14. So yeah, again, that's the way that you want to put your markers around, and the deck is really strong. But by creating hand, by getting the ability of Bull Spike multiple times in the game, and also by just putting your opponent at high damage. For the grade 2 lineup, the grade 3s that you would run but are not in the deck are the Ronaldo and the Spike Bouncer. Of course, the Bracky is a card that you don't want to take out. The Bracky is important to have in the deck. Gives you soul, gives you power, which is something that's very important, as I explained with the combo, because he would be your attacker. We have Branch and we have our Adorbs right here. So these two, the skill of Spike Bouncer, whenever he's placed, especially when riding him as a Vanguard, he gives you the ability to get the right cards to rush your opponent, and also to not lose hand. She also does the same thing, but she calls you the grade 3, which is needed for your Rising Nova on your next turn, which means that having her is better than having him. Then you would say, but I also have the second ability of Spike Bouncer, which is very good against, let's say, Narukami and those kind of decks, or Chronofang, but he does the same thing, even better. So again, this is a card that does not cost you a Counterblast, but he does cost you a Counterblast. So all in all, a combination of these two is better than having the Spike Bouncer in the deck. So that's why we take the Spike Bouncer out, because he's way too Counterblast heavy to play in this deck. Then we have Ronaldo. I've never been a big fan of Ronaldo in Standard. I love him in Premium. You can do a lot of crazy shenanigans with him in Premium, but in Standard, not that much. And one of the reasons why Power Back Ronaldo is not good in Standard is because he doesn't have the second ability of her, which means that whenever you call with Ronaldo, you most of the time will replace him. He costs a Counterblast, he costs a card from your hand, and he is useless on the field. He's a 5k shield, but that's it. So normally, this card is better than Ronaldo. The Counterblast, her being a booster, whatever you want to get from your deck, you will get as the grade 3 that you need, is the best thing you want. And that's the reason why we don't play Ronaldo. We don't want to fill our field with cards that we don't need. Even more targets for decks like Gridora. We don't want that. We don't want to create that. We want regulars that leave the field. We want empty field. We don't want to give your opponent the opportunity to have a lot of cards to retire against Blade Master, against Gridora, against Narukami, against different decks. And that's why a combination of these grade 2s is the best thing that you could do. And some people would say, I would like to take one of him out to play one more grade 3. Well, you could. You could play any other grade 3 you want. I advise you to just play the Cyclone, but if you want to play Juggernauts or something else, you could also do that. If you want to play the one copy of Seafried, you could do that. Why not? Test it out and see how it works. For me, this works the best. I like the grade 2s. I even had to take the one grade 1 to play those grade 2s. For the grade 1s, there are also some choices that you could make. Some different choices to play in the deck, which are Wonderboy. It's one of the cards that I've seen a lot of people play in the deck. He gives you soul, you recycle cards. He's very good, very effective. Yes and no. Why yes and why no? First of all, for Ronaldo to be very effective, he needs to stay one turn extra on the field, which is something that's we could not really expect Ronaldo to, or Wonderboy to do. And the reason is that we will be playing in a heavy retire format, and Wonderboy right here would be one of the cards that you will see gone very, very fast. So that's one of the reasons why Wonderboy is not in the deck. Also, what would you take out? You don't want to take out him because he's a good right target and he searches the grade 3s, which is the best thing you want, but also he's a good 13k attacker or a booster. You definitely don't want to take Dexter because Dexter is an important combo piece in the deck. So the only card that you could take out is the Commander Gary Cannon. But as we saw, Commander Gary Cannon leaves an open card circle behind him. He draws you card, he makes the deck consistent. He's very effective in the early game. He's also could be good in the late game, but normally you don't call him because your opponent would never take the attack. But it's a very important card to have in the deck. But if you want to take this out, then you could add one of these 3. I dislike having Wonderboy in this deck. I also don't see that he's necessary, of course, because also we have Branch, our grade 2, that also recycle cards. This guy, I don't really see a reason for Wonderboy to be in the deck. So Wonderboy is out. Then we are left with these 2. Are these 2 better than Commander Gary Cannon? Is the question, is the big question. First of all, I thought Gyro Slinger would be very good. And it's one of the cards that I run at 4 at my starting testing days with this deck. But then I very soon took him out because you could not get rid of that Gyro Slinger. And also one of the good things about Gyro Slinger is you target him with Seafried, which means that you could keep cool new stuff. In this deck you don't play Seafried, there is no reason to play Gyro Slinger. It's not a card that you want to have in the early game because sometimes there's nothing you want to call, or you only check the top 1 or top 2 and it's something that you also don't want to do. So having the Dexter in the deck, having the Commander Gary Cannon in the deck is better in my eyes. But it's definitely the only contender that I would run to replace the Commander Gary Cannon is the Gyro Slinger. So still, with more testing, we will see which one of them will stay, or yeah, let's say will stay in this deck. The good thing about Commander Gary Cannon is just he leaves an open regular circle behind him. He goes out, he goes off the field, he gives you the cards back to your hand, and that makes him very good. It's one of the things that I love about Offensive Punter. He comes out of the soul, which gives you a +1. He pretty much boosts a grade 3, which makes a perfect number, and that's amazing. But in this deck, you don't want to lose soul. That one soul you want to keep. Also, you could not almost never use his ability because you don't have cards like Seafried that give you a lot of soul that you could afford using his ability. So one of the cards that you will not run in this deck. It's pretty much up to you to run which of these you want. I'm always a fan of Commander Gary Cannon, and he does a lot for the deck as make the deck more consistent. And he also go away, so you could just put anything else you want on the field. With Gyro Slinger, he does not. He gets your card from your hand, but he does give you soul. But Commander Gary Cannon also gives you soul. So pretty much between these 2, I like Commander Gary Cannon more with the current deck that I have, but maybe in the future we'll change him out. And that's pretty much it. We have gone through the Grade 1 lineup, we have gone through the Grade 2 lineup, we've talked about triggers, we've talked about everything there is to know about the deck. If you have any questions, then definitely you could just put a comment on the comment section below and I will answer you as fast as I can. But also, you could just contact me on Facebook or just put a post out there in the new Spike Brother group, which we also made a video for the Spike Brother group as well. If you haven't seen that, you could check that out as well. The link will be in the description section below for you guys to check that out as well. Alright guys, thank you all for watching. Thank you for all the love, the support you give to our channel. Thanks for liking the videos, commenting, and also the support you give us on Facebook. And we will see you guys in the next video. Till next time.